and other fellow citizens on Monday, October 9th, exclusively on KBLA Talk 1580. The Tape, 1 year later. We're broadcast live in afternoon drive from 5 to 7 p.m. with an immediate encore presentation from 7 to 9 p.m. When all was said and done, was more said than done. 1 year later, are there fractures in LA's black-brown political partnership? And where do we go from here? Don't miss The Tape, 1 year later. Only on KBLA Talk 1580, Monday, October 9th, live from 5 to 7 p.m. with an immediate encore presentation from 7 to 9 p.m. We've got a lot to talk about.
I know radio probably ain't gonna play this, but chopper going off in the hood, man, like Afghanistan or the Gaza Strip somewhere, man. Yeah. We hear so much, we probably know them to it by now. After all, it's the American way, right?
Home of the brave and free.
It's America.
Free just to murder me.
Land of the handgun.
Land of the beautiful.
Home of the shotgun.
Cursed by the hate withdrawn.
You're dead if you ain't got one. It was like this before I got here, baby. I ain't do it. I ain't started, I'm just a part of it. Turn it. Aye. You said it the home of the brave, I get. I said it the home of the K's and the vet. All along with the J's, smokies, distress. Home chrome with the text, up the spray for respect. I learned from the bed, you to stay in the jet. Brought word from the vets, burn the rubber in the vet. It's as good as it get, you to play with the rat. Then I got older and learned stay away from the rat. God bless you, the hustle up and make 8 figures.
KBLA, Talk 1580. Going down south with T.I. And of course, our next guest for a daily deep dive today. He was sworn in November 2019 as the 57th mayor of the city of Montgomery, Alabama. It's a historic destination known globally as the birthplace of the civil rights movement. He's the first African-American ever to hold that position, native of Montgomery. He says he's committed to realizing his vision of a more equitable, progressive, and compassionate city. Mayor Stephen Reed, good morning.
Good morning. How are you doing?
I'm great. It's great to hear your voice. Of course, you popped into the national spotlight around a riverboat incident at the docks that went viral, as we say now.
Yeah.
But there's a lot more to your leadership than that.
No, absolutely, Dominique. I want to thank you for having me. And it's great to be talking to you and your listeners, not only in Southern California, but around the world, across the country, obviously. For me, leadership is not about an act. It's a process. And what we experienced just a couple of months ago with the incident downtown, the riverboat, I think was, the latest test and challenge for us and how we deal with things around race and reconciliation, how we deal with things as a community that is still trying to navigate this post-Trump era, if you will, and the toxicity that exists in the air, and really how we lead in a way that, such luminaries such as former Mayor Tom Bradley and now Mayor Karen Bass lead L.A. And it's different, but it's the same whether, you're the mayor of a, international city like L.A. or you're the mayor of a mid-sized city like Montgomery that punches above its weight in terms of notoriety and the impact that things here have because of our history around the civil rights movement, our history around racial progress throughout this country. So leading that and being from here is kind of what our book First Best is about, and how I came into this path as mayor is really illustrated for those that are politically aware, but also for those that are trying to bring up the next generation of young men and young women leaders, kind of what I took away from that generation of trailblazers that changed so much for our nation.
Well, congratulations on that book, by the way. It will be released tomorrow. It's called First Best, Lessons in Leadership and Legacy from Today's Civil Rights Movement. And you, as the mayor of a city that has such a prominent role in the civil rights movement, must feel a certain kind of responsibility, pressure, or at least legacy to carry on. How is that reflected in the book?
It's all of the above. There's pressure, there's responsibility, there's legacy there, all of those things. And I think for myself, being from here and having the opportunity to not only get to know the King family, Mrs. King in particular, but also the Abernathy family, the Gray family, so many folks who were leaders in the bus boycott movement, leaders in the Selma to Montgomery voting rights movement, the Lewis family, all of them, I think in some way have helped, form, my approach to leadership and really being a change agent beyond just being a CEO of a city. And the thing that I take away now, I try to share in the book, is that they all would talk about, the imperfections. They would talk about the missteps. They talked about the mistakes, and, the history books only tell you this, but let me tell you, how this really happened. And they were always willing to share to us that, one, they didn't have titles. They didn't have elected office holders. They didn't have even a lot of money. But what they had was faith, and they had courage, and they had the commitment to change, and that there were, missteps that were made, that no one was a deity, nor should they be looked at as that. And that's what I try to share with our leaders now, whether it's the Black Lives Matter movement or others that are on social media, that, you can have missteps. The thing is that you be willing to stay committed to the cause. And if the purpose and the passion align, then change can happen, in particular now when it really needs to happen based on, what's in the political environment, what we're seeing around voting rights, what we're seeing around affirmative action, what we're seeing around gerrymandering of districts, what we're seeing around corporate DEI initiatives. All of these are things that I think we need Gen Z and millennials to understand, that you don't have to be this perfect person in order to lead. Congressman Lewis would say that to us all the time. Attorney Fred Gray would say that to us. Mrs. King said that to us. So you don't have to be that person to do what is right. We're human, we're fallible, but we have the opportunity to still impact our communities and to impact people beyond when we are aligned to do the right thing. And that's what I try to share in First Best.
Now, so many things to follow up on in what you said. We're dealing with the anniversary of major missteps here in Los Angeles. It was a year ago today that a tape was revealed that caused two of our city council members to step down, the head of our LA Labor Federation to resign, and one council member who's still hanging in there. I'm sure you're familiar. It was anti-Blackness and racism, and even the president of the United States weighed in. And you talk about being imperfect. Nobody's perfect. But what's the line between what our standards are for those that represent us in a situation like what we're facing in LA versus expecting people to be little perfect robots in order to lead? What's the line? Where's the forgiveness? What are the boundaries?
It's a great point. One of the things that my father, Joe Reed, who led the sit-in movements here at the request of Dr. King in 1960 to integrate lunch counters in Montgomery, Alabama, as a student leader at Alabama State University, shared with me is that if you can't have honest conversations, it's hard to come up with, right solutions. And you have to be practical and pragmatic in the approach, whether that was the days of segregation, state-sanctioned segregation here in Alabama in the 60s, or even post-voting rights, 1965 coming into the 70s, where he was one of the first he was part of the first group of black council members that came in Montgomery in 1975. I think we have to make sure that when we are looking at whether it's corporate leaders, academic leaders, or even political leaders and grassroots leaders, that we allow for there to be a frankness in discussion, that we allow for there to be a true sense of transparency without judgment. Now, when your words take on the meaning and the underlying purpose of dehumanizing or really what I might say is invalidating someone's presence, their humanity, that's different. When you have words that are used to incite, whether it be violence or to incite fear, that is very different. And so I think we have to make sure when we're looking at what someone may say, matter-of-factly, very frankly, that we judge it in its full context, and then we look at the body of work of the person. And I think that has happened when we have made sometimes we overreaction to some leaders, and maybe we haven't reacted strong enough to others. But I think we have to make sure that we're looking at the full body of work that person has. What do they stand for? What have they done? Does this reflect who they have been? Or is this just one of those situations where, all right, they were having a frank discussion, it's not PC, and, we need to, see where their heart is as opposed to where their mouth was at that time. That's how I tend to look at things, because I will tell you in Alabama, I want people to be frank with me, and I want to be frank with them. It cuts out all the innuendo. It cuts out a lot of wasted time and effort. And I just prefer to know where people stand. And I prefer to know how they feel about an issue. It may be regarding LGBTQIA. It may be an issue around African-American empowerment. It may be an issue around criminal justice reform. It may be a multitude of issues. I want to know where people are, and I want people to feel like, if we're having a conversation, let's be frank. Now, there's some racism in that. There's sexism in there. There's homophobia in there. There's anti-Semitism in that. Then that's a problem. And there's no getting around that. But I want people to be able to have a frank conversation, whether they're a council member of mine, a state senator, or a congressional person, or even someone that's a business leader. Just talk frank so we can arrive at what we need to do to improve things. Because at the end of the day, the people that we represent are really looking for progress. They aren't looking for motion. Motion is movement in place. They are looking for movement moving forward, going forward, and that's what progress represents. And sometimes you have to have those tough talks in order to get to a point of agreement, in order to get to a point of, we're just going to agree to disagree.
We're talking with Montgomery Mayor Stephen Reed. Your state, Alabama, has been much in the news when it comes to the voting rights of Black people. We'll look at that, plus what leadership really means when surrounded by civil rights icons. All that and more when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580 is an intervention. When we come forward, includes you. KBLA Talk 1580, turning pain into power.
The Los Angeles Urban League helps African American and others in underserved communities achieve true social parity, economic self-reliance, and civil rights. For over 100 years, Los Angeles Urban League has ensured our communities have access to careers with living wages, opportunities to start and grow businesses, and clear pathways to personal and professional growth. Programs like Biz Camp, Construction Career Academy, Bob Business Ready, and B-Warp. The Black Wealth Attainment and Retention Program are examples of the ongoing events designed to make our centennial mission to rebuild Black Wall Street right here in LA a reality. To sign up for our newsletter or to support the Los Angeles Urban League with your time, talents, and donations, visit laul.org. That's laul.org. The Los Angeles Urban League is a proud sponsor of Urban Family Focus, Saturdays at 7 a.m. on KBLA Talk 1580.
King C. Gillette knows you're dedicated to your barbershop routine. But what about after? What's your routine for facial hair to avoid dry skin, itching, and beard rough? Well, the King C. Gillette Beard Oil is a perfect fit for making your beard feel as good as it looks. It softens your facial hair and moisturizes to help prevent itch due to dry skin. Get facial hair that feels as good as it looks. Just trim, wash, and soften with King C. Gillette.
Wireless headphones. That'll be $200.
I'll use my Capital One Quicksilver card.
Now that's a hit. You used the Capital One Quicksilver card, which makes you the hero of every purchase. With Quicksilver, you earn unlimited 1.5% cash back on every purchase everywhere.
I wanted running music, but unlimited 1.5% cash back is pretty heroic.
Good instincts. Every hero needs a theme song. The Capital One Quicksilver card. What's in your wallet?
Terms apply. See CapitalOne.com for details.
Thanks for waking up with Dominique DiPrima on KBLA Talk 1580.
Always appreciate you being here, and I'm excited to talk with Montgomery Mayor Stephen Reed. His new book is First Best: Lessons in Leadership and Legacy from Today's Civil Rights Movement. You mentioned having formed friendships with these iconic civil rights leaders and their families, the King family, the Lewis family, and others. Do these folks, are they in your ear saying, Mayor Reed, have you considered this policy, or have you considered this approach? Is there mentorship? Is there meddling? Is there guidance?
I would definitely say there's mentorship and guidance. Absolutely. I've been very, very fortunate, and as the book kind of lays out to, again, young men and young women, it's not always a direct line in your professional path. So for me, even growing up around this in Montgomery, I didn't have a real appreciation for it. These were just people that my parents knew from back in the day. You're trying to do your own thing when you're a teenager and you're off at college and that sort of thing. And it's not until sometimes people outside of your circle, outside of your space, kind of ask you, well, why haven't you taken advantage of this conversation that you can have, or why haven't you asked this person, or how did this come about? You start to realize there's that value in oral history. There's that value in the wisdom of, many of our elders. And, one of the people who's probably most engaged right now is still former ambassador and Atlanta Mayor Andrew Young. And he has challenged or charged, if you will, me to not only, pick up the baton of, those mayors that came in generations before us, right after the Civil Rights Movement, of some of the challenges that they had, but also to make sure that we are advancing this current generation and what our charge is right now. And whether that's on economic development, whether that's building entrepreneurship and through wealth building, or even through education and building these coalitions, he has certainly been there. Prior to Congressman Lewis passing away, his, action to me was to try to push back on those who would reverse some of the progress that had been made. He endorsed me in my first race in 2012 for probate judge, which was the chief election official, is the chief election official in our county. He endorsed me in my run for mayor here in 2019. But his view was to share, one, why he got involved so young in the movement, but what threats he saw as a congressman, being an elder statesman at the time, and what he thought our opportunities were as elected leaders now of a city like Montgomery, of other major cities across the South and across the country. So, you take those pearls of wisdom that they shared, and what I try to share, again, in our book, First Best, is that, for those that are in other parts of the country, that these were real people with real thoughts and ideas, who were very human, very willing to share and talk with those who were willing to listen. There were a lot of meetings, I would say most meetings, that I even share with my young professional counsel here and other young leaders right here in Montgomery and Alabama, where I didn't talk. And I said, it didn't matter that I was the mayor or I was a judge, I just didn't talk. it was you sit and you listen to what they're sharing, what they're telling you because of what they have seen, what they have experienced, what they have been a part of, and what they did without modern technology, without being able to put together a text thread or group chat and say, this is how we're going to organize, being able to, utilize Facebook or other forms of social media right away to reach people. What they did with so much fewer resources, even financially. And so, I'm proud that, you have the mentorship of an Andrew Young and had the mentorship of a Congressman Lewis and others to kind of guide us, myself in particular, in the way as an elected official in that vein. And now there are others like former Secretary, Homeland Secretary Jay Johnson, and many others who also kind of share those thoughts. Urban League President Mark Morial, so many others who share their experiences with not only myself, but again, encourage us to share with the millennials and Gen Zs to say, hey, this is how things go. It's not always, again, a direct line. Sometimes it zigs and zags, but you'll get there. And I think that's the part for me is to try to encourage those mentors and try to encourage those leaders across the country of how we take the baton in this generation and pass it to the next generation and work with them through tech, work with them through entrepreneurship, work with them through the faith community, grassroots community, as a way to say, these are some lessons that have been passed to us. Let us pass them to you, and let's continue to, advance the cause for our community.
Yeah. I remember when Black Lives Matter really burst into the national consciousness, not the founding, but around 2020, when it really became a global conversation. There was some conflict between the more traditional civil rights leaders, some of the leadership coming out of the church, and the young folks in BLM, nationally and locally, who had a more militant style of leadership. How do you reconcile those? Really, how do you deal with this? You're talking about lessons in leadership and legacy from today's civil rights movement. But today's civil rights movement encompasses a whole range. How do you pull all of that together in your lessons for leadership?
I think by making sure that first we keep the central focus on the purpose. The purpose is the advancement of our community, right? So when we think about that as mayor, I'm the CEO of a city. And one of the things that, I try to share is my approach to moving us forward may be different than the activist, than the pastor, than the protester. I understand that, but understanding my position, I can be helpful. I can be an ally. I don't have to be the opposition. And I will work, with you in a way that those activists from the bus boycott could not work with the mayor at that time, or those leaders in the sit-in movement, the freedom ride movements could not work with. And I think that what I've been able to do, like post George Floyd, one of the things, and I shared this in the book, is that we were the only major city in Alabama that did not have violent protests happen. And in part, I believe it was because of the legacy of nonviolent protests. In part, I believe it was because of the leadership at the grassroots level to keep things peaceful. But I think also in part, it was because of my initiative to go to E.D. Nixon Elementary School deliberately, because E.D. Nixon was one of the people who led the bus boycott here at that time, and speak to the community and acknowledge what government had not done. And I did that impromptu. Nobody told me to do that. It was my call. I went live at 5 p.m. without broadcast to give a 12-minute or so speech about what Montgomery had not done. to advance equity and equality and understanding the frustration. And I had heard from many what the animosity was about. So we had to acknowledge as a government, even though I was in office less than a year, what had not been done. And so I think when you're dealing with this generation of protesters, because they come from a generation where they don't have to wait, they don't expect to wait. And I get that. Because they come from a generation where they have seen the Michael Browns, and they have seen the tragedies of Trayvon Martin. They have seen all these things growing up, but also they've lived in a post-Obama, post-Black presidency world. You have to try to reconcile the elders who view protests one way versus a generation that has come up seeing things on social media, seeing dead bodies lying on, in the middle of the street, seeing, Sandra Bland, others, those things happen, that there's a certain level of trauma that comes with that, and what their response is different than even those who read about or heard about Emmett Till. And so we have to try to blend those together. And I think what leadership is acknowledging, different opinions, understanding them, and not saying you have to have either or, but utilizing the both and the and to say, here's how we still advance the cause. And that's why I started there and I end there, because that is how I believe we lead, because we have people in position corporately, politically, academically, faith leadership that can do more things and may have a different opinion. It may not be just top down, it may be bottom up. And how we move forward to get back to the central mission, which is progress for people who have been looked over, left out, and left behind.
Talking with Montgomery Mayor Stephen Reed. We'll get to those Alabama voting maps when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
More of First Things First with Dominique DiPrima when we come forward.
Good morning, I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network. We're now learning at least 9 Americans are among the dead after surprise attacks on Israel triggered the start of an all-out war over the weekend. State Department spokesman Matt Miller confirmed the 9 known U.S. fatalities. The overall death toll continues to rise, nearing 1,200, with thousands more injured on both sides of the conflict. A spokesperson for Senator Cory Booker says the New Jersey Democrat and his staff were able to safely depart Israel on Sunday. In a statement, the spokesperson said Booker and his staff were in Jerusalem at the time of the Hamas attacks. Booker, an African-American who serves on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, arrived in Israel on Friday. He was scheduled to speak tomorrow at an economic summit in Tel Aviv. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network, and BINnews.com.
Looking for a late night spot to get the crew together? 3 words, Buffalo Wild Wings. They've got drinks and apps starting at $4 from 10 p.m. till close. B-Dubs, where late night food and drinks start at $4. Cheers to that. Limited time at participating locations. Offers, days, and times may vary. Drink responsibly. Void or prohibited. Tax and fees extra.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The Rams played Philadelphia tough yesterday, but lose by 9 at SoFi. Philadelphia improved to 5-0. Give the Rams defense some love. They kept the Eagles out of the end zone in the second half. The problem was the Rams offense. The Rams went scoreless in the second half and dropped to 2-3. The Dodgers pitching staff is on notice tonight for Game 2 of their National League playoff series with Arizona. 6 Dodgers pitchers gave up 11 runs and 13 hits in the Game 1 loss Saturday night. First pitch at 6:07 on TBS. Top 5 teams in this week's AP College Football rankings: Georgia, Michigan, Ohio State, Florida State, and Oklahoma. USC dropped from 9th to 10th after their triple overtime win Saturday night over Arizona. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Maisha Cairo here with a quick recap from my time at JP Morgan Chase's Advancing Black Wealth Tour. There were speakers Ian Dunlap, Damon John, Lynn Richardson, MC Light, Don Kennedy, to name a few. Take a listen to what Justin Grant, Community Development Lead at Chase's Advancing Black Pathway, let's see what he had to say.
So I'm Justin Grant. I lead community development and national partnerships for JP Morgan Chase's Advancing Black Pathway strategy. And so we're focused on strengthening the economic foundation of black communities, and we're making targeted investments in programs like the Advancing Black Wealth Tour to help us get our tools and resources out to the community to drive sustained impact over time.
So when it comes to black and brown people, it sounds like Chase is making it their personal responsibility not only to facilitate these events, but to educate and provide resources. So, Mr. Grant, I have to ask, what does wealth building look like for the individual?
It's home ownership. It's having that freedom to be able to start your own business and create jobs in your community. And it's having that long-term plan towards retirement, having that vision for what you want your life to be, and you have the resources to actually live it.
I'm Aisha Cairo. Thanks for sticking around. That was my recap from Chase's Advancing Black Wealth Tour. First stop was here in LA, and they're taking it national.
Happy birthday, Metro K-Line. Whether traveling for business or pleasure, it's time you made today a K-Line day. The K-Line can connect you with fun, food, friends, and family from Crenshaw to Inglewood in one safe, clean, comfortable ride. Take the K-Line today and experience the diversity that makes LA such a great place to live, work, and play. Make it a K-Line day. Go Metro. Visit metro.net/K-Line.
We've got a lot to talk about.
Are you interested in catching up on all the latest entertainment news, trending topics, and exciting interviews? I got you. Tune in to The Raw Report with Robin Ayers, Monday through Friday, 6 to 7 p.m. I'm your host, Robin Ayers. Join me every weekday with some of the best entertainment contributors in the business as we break down what's going on, who's got next, and what not to miss. Only on The Raw Report with Robin Ayers.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
Some people won't give you the real talk on drugs, but it's time we know the facts. Fentanyl is killing people. It's a powerful opioid, often made illegally and commonly mixed with illicit drugs. It can even be pressed into counterfeit pills that resemble prescription medications. Just 2 milligrams, about the size of a few grains of sand, could potentially be lethal. This isn't an ad to scare you, but it is an ad to make you think twice. Get the facts. Go to realdealonfentanyl.com. This message is brought to you by the Ad Council.
We knew you'd stick around. This is LA's home for progressive talk radio. Welcome back to KBLA Talk 1580.
Welcome back indeed. We're talking with Montgomery mayor and author Stephen Reed. His book is First Best: Lessons in Leadership and Legacy from Today's Civil Rights Movement. And speaking of leadership, the Supreme Court ruled that a new congressional map in Alabama needed to be drawn that complied with the law that would create a couple of black districts or somewhere close to that, rather than underrepresenting black voters. Back in June, the justices upheld a lower court decision that required the state to draw a map with 2 majority black voting districts. Then Republicans in your state, at the state level, refused to do it, Mayor Reed. And it had to go back through the courts, and the state government had to be forced to draw something closer to fair voting maps. Talk to me about your thoughts on this.
Wow. We could almost spend the whole time on that, but I won't. I will say, as I think my dad is quoted in the book, as saying, what's old is new again. And you never complete the fight for equality when you're black in this country. And I think, that's one of the core, lessons, for all of us to understand, regardless of where we are, not just in Alabama and the South, but even as it relates, again, to economic parity, what we see in terms of black home ownership, what we see in the wages that black women are paid relative to their peers, all these things that impact, better financial stability for not only us as individuals, but as a collective in the community. And Alabama did what Alabama has done. And hence why I have to remind some of my peers and colleagues who will ask me why I refer to history so much, because as so many have said, in particular, House Minority Whip Jim Clyburn, those who don't learn from their history certainly will repeat it. And I know that is not just attributed to him, but it's attributed to where we are right now in the current political landscape and the rollback of efforts, again, of people of that civil rights generation, those college leaders who came together to help form the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee in Raleigh, such as my father, Joe Reed, and so many others, Diane Nash, and all the other luminaries that were part of that. And so when you see Alabama doing what Alabama has done, it serves as a stark reminder that we have to continue to push back on these efforts. And Alabama has always used the state government as a hammer, if you will, as opposed to a way to help bring people together. It has always been defiant in its stance as it relates to true equality and racial progress. It remains in that way, despite certainly the number of black state representatives and state senators that we have. We're in the super minority. And so it takes the courts, and it takes activism, like the plaintiff in this case, Evan Milligan, who I've known since he was a little boy, and now is a activist, one who would be in the Gen Z conversation that I'm talking about, but is certainly younger than I am, but is active and leading in a different way. And so we're proud of him, and we're proud of the NAA Legal Defense Fund and so many others who came together to help push this case, because that is what it takes. And it will not only impact Alabama, it will impact Louisiana, it will impact Florida, Georgia, and potentially North Carolina. So now there's precedent for how congressional maps are drawn, which is tremendous, even for those who are cynical about the state of politics right now. And from our standpoint, I'm glad the Supreme Court ruled the way it did. I was not glad at how the Supreme Court dealt with the affirmative action case in higher education with North Carolina, University of North Carolina. But certainly from a voting rights perspective, this was a win. And it says a lot, and I know President Obama also opined on it over the weekend in a tweet about what it really means. And I think for us, it also shows, I hope, again, the next generation, that not everything happens overnight. This case has been going on for at least 3 years. In some cases, from some opinions, it goes back to even Shelby versus Holder under the Obama administration. So it being a kind of a new version of that. So you would go back even a decade. So we just have to make sure, again, that we're staying the course and we're sharing those stories so that people don't think that progress happens in the context of a hour-long documentary or in the amount of a short that's on TikTok for 2 to 3 minutes. It doesn't happen like that. We got to stay at it, and I'm glad that Alabama is in this position, and I'm glad that Alabama has been really, I hope, embarrassed, I hope humbled, if nothing else, about how the district should be drawn, not just at the congressional level, but at the state and local level as well.
And as a result, Democrats will likely pick up a seat in the state, which, if you're confused, gives you a really clear indication of why Republicans are so hell-bent on limiting the voting rights of Black people and other people of color, but particularly, it seems, Black people. The reason you say this can impact Louisiana and South Carolina, among others, is because they are in similar kinds of battles around their maps, right? And one of them will
That's correct.
come before the Supreme Court, if I'm not mistaken, this week.
I think that's Louisiana, if I'm not mistaken, as well.
Yes.
But yes, and that is, again, important. And I want to say this to your listeners, Dominique, because I think that, particularly sometimes in the South, that things can be mischaracterized. Representation matters. Access matters. Being able to get your priorities to your member of Congress is major, whether it's your mayor, whether it's your county CEO or chairman, whether it's about judicial appointments, federal sentencing. Those things are significant. And again, it's not something that is always easy to discern. But trust me, having a Maxine Waters there, having a Ken Bass, who I know is now mayor and working with us at the African American Mayors Association, is important. Having those type leaders is very, very important for advancing issues that disproportionately affect Black and brown communities. And so to have a second voice there for us in Alabama would be significant, and as it will be for Louisiana and other states that may benefit from the ruling. And again, I think that goes back to the calling of the previous generation, that it's not just about me, it's about we, and it's about the collective, and it's about the impact we can have through activism, through elections, through the courts. And we have to continue to do that, because that has been our struggle since we were brought here to this country. Our ancestors were brought here. That has been the fight, that has been the struggle, that is in the DNA of our people. And so for us to have the advantages that we have and have the positions that we have corporately, politically, we have to continue to do that. And I don't want people just to say, well, that's Alabama, or that's South Carolina, or that's Georgia. No, it will impact other decisions in Arizona, in California, in Colorado, in Washington State. It will impact other places because of the precedent is now in this ruling, and that is a step forward. Doesn't mean that we have made it to the promised land, but it is a step forward, in particular after what happened with Shelby v. Holder a decade or so ago.
Talking with author and Montgomery Mayor Stephen Reed. And before we let you go, we are going to have to ask you what happened, the what, when, where, why, a follow-up to the incident that made the folding chair a national symbol. And also want to talk to you about a theory I have about children of the movement, which I believe you are one. It's KBLA Talk 1580.
She's reclaiming her time on KBLA Talk 1580. More First Things First with Dominique DiPrima when we come forward.
The City of Los Angeles Civil Rights Department and its Reparations Advisory Commission are calling on you to be a part of something powerful. Join the Black Experience Study to share your experiences with the City of Los Angeles. We want to hear your stories. To join the study, join a focus group, or schedule an interview with us, visit www.blackexperiencela.com by December 31st. For more information, call 213-978-1845 or visit www.laisforeveryone.com.
At City National, we listen to you.
I want to expand my business and my legacy.
I want to set up the next generation for success.
I want to see my vision come to life.
I want to feel right at home. Your goals, passions, vision, future. We want to hear it and work alongside you to achieve it. Visit cnb.com to learn more. City National Bank. Here for our clients and communities.
For all of us, this generation and the next, there is simply no place in our lives for litter. And yet, it's everywhere we look. And unfortunately, it does belong to all of us. So, let's come together and create a litter-free, clean California, once and for all. Remember to properly dispose of your trash and recycling. Secure truckloads with tarps to keep debris from flying out. Clean out your car when you're at a gas station. Take pride in your community by organizing a cleanup event or join a cleanup event near you. Zero litter is the goal. Join us at cleanca.com. That's cleanca.com. Let's do it together. Brought to you by Caltrans. cleanca.com.
Walk to Save Lives. Join the American Heart Association's Los Angeles Heart and Stroke Walk, Sunday, October 22nd at the Rose Bowl in Pasadena. Team up with friends and family and walk to end heart and stroke. Every step you take and every dollar raised will help save lives and make our community a healthier place for all. Learn more and sign up for free at heartwalkla.org. Sponsored by Optum, UCLA Health, Providence, Keck Medicine of USC, and Dignity Health. Happy birthday, Metro K-Line. Whether traveling for business or pleasure, it's time you made today a K-Line day. The K-Line can connect you with fun, food, friends, and family from Crenshaw to Inglewood in one safe, clean, comfortable ride. Take the K-Line today and experience the diversity that makes LA such a great place to live, work, and play. Make it a K-Line day. Go Metro. Visit metro.net/K-Line.
Heard any other talk radio lately that sounds anything like this? We didn't think so. You're listening to Unapologetically Progressive, KBLA Talk 1580.
And we appreciate you always being with us. We're talking with Montgomery Mayor Stephen Reed. And, I have to get back to the riverboat brawl. The folding chair continues to be a enduring symbol of resistance.
I see.
And so what happened? What happened with the people that were involved? Who went to jail? Who's out? Has anything changed in the city policies and procedures because of this? What's the aftermath, I guess, is the question.
Sure. Well, one, I found that the folding chair has become a symbol, enduring symbol, along with the hat as well. I had no idea,
right,
when I got the call across our police radio that any of this would happen. Even after I saw the video, you never can tell these days what the internet will make a major phenomenon and what won't. But, from our standpoint as a city, there were several charges made against those that were involved in this. And most are misdemeanors, along with, and those were on the folks that started the initial fight itself by not complying with the captain of the riverboat's orders and moving their boat, and started the initial melee. The gentleman who had the chair, picked up the chair, was charged with disorderly conduct. And those are going through our criminal justice system as with any other case. So, everybody some came in on their own. I think everybody came on their own, if I'm not mistaken. But all were, subsequently released because they were misdemeanor charges, and they will take the course through our legal system as with anything else. As it relates to the city, what we try to do was kind of reevaluate, obviously, safety protocols and procedures in public spaces, not just along our river wall, but in other spaces, to try to prevent that and to try to make sure that safety remained a priority, again, in this day and age, even with unsuspecting or unpredictable circumstances that we might find ourselves in. I think the bigger takeaway yes, I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say, what about the captain of the riverboat? Did he face any repercussions?
No. He's not facing any repercussions. Spoke with him, and he was put in a position where he had to defend himself, and understood that. And listen, I heard from some people I would not have expected to hear from here in this city and around the state, who said that, hey, I would have done the same thing. If I can help him, let me know. I mean, with people I would not have expected to call me and reach out to our office to say that, to say, those folks were in the wrong, and, they got what was coming to them. And that was, just surprising to hear from some quarters in the aftermath. And I think locally, it did encapsulate where I think a lot of people are, which is there's a different mindset about protest and response than maybe a previous generation may have had. And one thing I try to tell younger people who've asked about it in the community is that I will say this: there were no weapons used, and everybody walked away, maybe a little bruised, maybe a little bloody, maybe a little hurt. And my point there is because we see a rise in gun violence among many of our young black men in particular. And one of the things that when I'm offline, I'll try to share with them is that I got in fights in college as well as high school and junior high. But they were fights. They weren't shootings. And I said, we live to tell about it. And there's one thing I want them to take away, even from that, is that, you can live to tell about it. Disagreements are as old as mankind. How we deal with them is what has changed.
Talking with Montgomery, Alabama Mayor Stephen Reed. Get some final words from him as I believe, child of the movement when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
A safe place to go loud. A great place for progressive politics. KBLA Talk 1580.
Hey, Dad, how do airplanes fly? What's in this box? Is this tree good for climbing? How are babies made? What does this thing do?
Kids are curious about everything, including guns. Talking to them about gun safety in your home is a good first step, but you can do more. Always keep your guns locked, unloaded, and stored separately from ammunition. Safe gun storage saves lives. Learn how to make your home safer at endfamilyfire.org. That's endfamilyfire.org. Brought to you by End Family Fire, Brady, and the Ad Council.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 reminding you that we keep us safe. The Center for the Pacific Asian Family was founded to help address domestic violence and sexual assault in the Asian and the Pacific Islander communities. The Center for the Pacific Asian Family's mission is to build healthy and safe communities by addressing the root causes and consequences of family violence and violence against women. They are committed to meeting the specific cultural and language needs of the Asian and Pacific Islander women and their families. CPAF's vision is of an Asian and Pacific Islander community that embraces healthy relationships and works in partnership with other communities to eradicate all forms of violence. To access services, volunteer, or for more info, visit nurturingchange.org. At KBLA Talk 1580, we believe everyone deserves to be safe. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
The conversation continues right now with Dominique DiPrima on First Things First.
We have some final minutes here with Montgomery Mayor Stephen Reed. His new book, First Best: Lessons in Leadership and Legacy from Today's Civil Rights Movement, is out tomorrow wherever you get your books. Mayor, how can we find you on social media or the internets to keep up with your work?
Yes, thank you for having me on your show and allowing me to talk to your listeners and discuss all the things that are happening not only in Montgomery but around the nation. But your listeners can find me on social media at Stephen Louis Reed, that's StevenLouis Reed, both on Instagram as well as X or Twitter, whatever we're calling it these days, but also on Facebook at Mayor Stephen Reed. And our book is something that we're really excited about, to be able to share some of these stories with a modern twist. It is not only just geared to us and young men, but also young women in the next generation of leaders, and those lessons that I learned from my father and many other leaders of the movement and how we apply those today. So it's on Amazon.com. It's also being sold in independent bookstores as well, and Avery Books, which is a subsidiary of Penguin Random House, is the publisher. So we're really excited about it. And we want you to purchase a copy, purchase several for people that you may know in your circle. And I think they'll find some great anecdotes in there and some great takeaways that can be useful for any of us, whether they're in politics or not.
I always use the example of not just Malcolm X, but Tupac Shakur, my own brother, Ras Baraka, who's the mayor of Newark, New Jersey, of course, the son of Amiri Baraka. I believe that the children of the movement, whether it be this generation or the one before, are part of the legacy, they're part of the progress from that work. Would you include yourself in that? Do you agree with that? How do you see it?
No, I think you're absolutely right. And yes, I think I would include myself in that because of the proximity to those, again, who are even still continuing to change this nation. Reverend Dr. Bernice King, Brian Stevenson, Reverend Dr. Raphael Warnock, so many who are continuing to do the work, getting to know Mayor Baraka in Newark and what he has done there. So I certainly think that, we are beneficiaries. My sons asked me, well, where's your picture with Mrs. Parks? Because they've heard those stories told them when she would come back here to Montgomery for different events. And I said, well, I'm going to date myself. And we didn't have camera phones. I said, when Mrs. Parks would come back, you had the old Polaroids, and some folks may have had a nice Canon, camera, but we didn't ask Mrs. Parks and others to always take a picture of Mrs. King. But those lessons, those conversations we were allowed to be in the room are things that we try to pass on. And so I'm a proud son of the movement, and I think the Black Lives Matter movement is creating its own niche and others. And I think they all go together with the struggle for progress that we've had in the country. And hopefully our book, First Best, shares some of those and how we can apply it to today.
Mayor Stephen Reed, thank you so very much. Tavis Smiley is on right now until tomorrow. One love.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
Good morning, I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network. We're now learning at least 9 Americans are among the dead after surprise attacks on Israel triggered the start of an all-out war over the weekend. State Department spokesman Matt Miller confirmed the 9 known U.S. fatalities. The overall death toll